Okay, so let's start record. Let's go through this one together. Okay. So this one I wanted you guys to try out, trying to get the class, more interactive, so to say. So here we have f of x, right? Now, f of x we have is 4x cubed plus 2x minus 1. Okay? And I want you to calculate f of 1, f of negative 3, and to calculate this sum. Okay? Okay, well, let's do that. And, oh, of course. Oh, for goodness sakes. Oh, jeez. Messed up the example. I'm sorry. Oh, my goodness. Let me see if I can fix it quickly. Well, let's go through. Let me just go through this one. So this is one, of course, is slightly different. I want it to be f of 1, f of negative 3. But anyway, here's the example. So I must have changed this one. I forgot to change the other slide. Oh, great. All right. Anyway, so here I want you to calculate f of 2 and f of negative 3, and then get the sum. Okay. So for this one, f of 2 now, right? What we have then is f of 2 is 4 times 2 cubed, right? So I'm replacing x by 2. So 4 times 2 cubed plus 2 times 2 squared plus 2 minus 1. So again, I'm just replacing x by 2. Okay, that's what I'm doing here. Okay, now what is this? Well, 2 cubed is 8. 8 times 4 is 32. 2 times 2 squared, right? Well, 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And 2 minus 1 is 1. If you add all these, you get 41. Again, I thought this was, I thought I caught this mistake. I'm sorry about that. So, all right. Here, you have f of negative 3, okay? Now, f of negative 3, right? Again, I'm just plugging it in. So we have 4 times negative 3 cubed, okay? Plus 2 times negative 3 squared plus negative 3. Here I wrote it as adding the negative. I mean, it's the same thing as subtraction. Minus 1. And, you could do this in your calculator. You just have to be careful with the minus signs. So, for instance, here we get minus 3 cubed times 4. So what is it? Minus 3 cubed is minus 27. And 27 times 4. But you get minus 108. Okay? Get minus 108. Here, you get 2 times negative 3 squared. Okay, and that turns out to be 18. And then you have plus minus 3 minus 1, which is minus 4. And this whole thing here turns out to be minus 94. And so this sum is 41 plus negative 94. 41 minus 94, minus 53. That's what we get. Okay, again, I'm sorry about that mistake. I don't know what happened. Oh my goodness. All right, let me, you know what? I could do this quickly. So we have that. Okay, here's another one. Let's just do another one. We have two, so in this one, we have f of x is 2x squared minus 3 times x minus 1. And I want you to calculate here f of 4, f of 3, and then add the results. Okay. So f of 4, I know this is something you could do in your calculator. But notice I'm showing the calculations. You really should show the calculations, okay? Like on the exam, not on quiz, because the quiz is going to be through Lumen Learning. If they're through Lumen Learning, you don't have to show your work. the exam you do. So here we get f of 4. Okay, so what is this? This is 2 times 4 squared, 2 times 16. 3 times 4 is 12, or minusing 12 minus 1. So this becomes 32 minus 12 minus 1. And so we get 20 minus 1, which is 19. Here, f of 3, we get 2 times 3 squared minus 3 times 3 minus 1. So again, I'm replacing x with whatever we want f of. So this is f of 3. Okay? And we get 2 times 9 is 18, minus 9 minus 1. And you know, when you calculate everything, you get 8. So 19 plus 8 we get is 27. All right. Okay, so any questions on that? All right. Well, so this is how, so we did some calculations. We also basically got the domain of a function from its equation. If you have y equals, you know, or f of x equals, really for us that's the same thing. We can also get the domain and range of a function if we have its graph. I mean, the graph, you know, graphing a function is very useful. You can learn a lot about a function that way, things that are not so obvious from the other ways you can find a function. In other words, there are things that the graph can tell you that are not as obvious from its equation. Now, we can get the domain and range of a function from its graph. Basically, what it boils down to, it does take a little visualization. But essentially, the domain is the portion or part of the x-axis that's either under or above the graph. Remember, the x-axis, you know, and the y-axis, they're copies of the number line, okay? And the way graphing is done, where the part of the x-axis that's either under or above the graph, that's where the input lives. Whereas for the y-axis, that's where the output lives. And the range actually is the part of the y-axis directly to the left or right. It does take a little visualization. That's why I wanted to practice a bit. But for instance, let's consider this. So this is the complete graph, okay? It doesn't keep on going. This is the complete graph. Now, let's say we want to get the domain of this thing, okay? Remember, the horizontal line, that's always the x-axis. Okay, so what's either above or under the graph? Well, you can see that, hopefully you can see that this is -3. From -3 on, oh boy, all the way down to here. From -3 to here, that's everything that's above the graph, okay? I mean, it does take a little visualization. You can imagine the graph being squished down onto the x-axis. This over here is everything below the graph. Well, don't forget that little dot. But hopefully you can see by what I'm drawing. Let me change the color of it. Make it a little bit easier to see. Hopefully you can see that you're going to get all this. I mean, I know I changed the colors, but I'm just trying to illustrate what's going on here. But hopefully you can see what I have down here, that the domain is everything from -3 all the way to 4. That interval. And again, because we're assuming this is the complete graph, what makes it a little bit easier is that the graph is a single piece. You know, it's not like broken up into little pieces. Then it gets a little tricky. It's not terrible, but it, you know, can be. That's the domain. Okay? That's the domain. Now, for the range, it's the same idea, except you have to move to the left or to the right. That's what I'm going to do here. So instead of, how do I say this, projecting vertically, you're going to move horizontally to the y-axis. So now I'm going to start out in green, I guess. So here we're moving to the y-axis, okay? Because we want the range, right? The range, that's vertical. Bear with me. Oh, boy. That's if you're moving, that's the y-axis to the left. Here, we have the y-axis to the right. Hopefully it makes sense what I'm doing. Like so. And maybe the bottom one can be a little bit better. Let me see if I can graph that just a little bit. I don't want to spend too much time drawing like this. One more time, but hopefully you can see that everything, hopefully you can see that everything from down here all the way up to, looks like 6, that whole interval in the y-axis is the range from -8 to 6. I know it's a little hard to see. I know it can take a little visualization. I understand that. But what's nice is, at least in this class, these are the only kind of graphs I would have you do this with. I'm not going to have you do this with, you know, something that, how do I say this? This is the only kind of graph that you will have to do this with. Okay. Keep that for now. Let me pause the recording.